Okay, folks, after you're done with your right circle here, what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and add these white circles around the blue circles. What these are considered, it's an outline around a fill object, and what they consider this is a stroke. And I'm going to show you how to put this onto a layer. What you want to do is you want to double click in this blank area over here, and we'll start with the right circle. So what I'm going to do is double click, and what will pop up is this layer style dialog box. And you can see on the left hand side here there is a stroke option. I'm going to actually cancel this and then move in real quick. Don't worry about canceling yours. I just wanted to make sure you can actually see what I am doing here. So I'm going to double click again, and then I am going to click on the stroke layer. You can see right off the bat it puts a black stroke around our circle. What we want to do is then click on the stroke text. What that's going to do is actually bring up the stroke options, and we want to change the color, so I'm going to click in the color area, and in the next dialog box, the color picker, I'm going to select white. Well, I just click and select it over there, click OK, and you can see there's a white now circle around this here. So I'm going to click OK with that one. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out here. Right now I'm just going through and looking at all of my options here. Okay, you did see that my white fill layer, it was on, but somehow I got on the darken layer style, but I put it back to normal now, and it looks like it should look now. So what we just did was added a stroke to our right circle layer. What I'm going to do now is actually copy the layer style that we just put onto the right circle and paste it to the left circle. So what we need to do is right click on the right circle and go to copy layer style. Then I'm going to go down to the left circle layer, right click, and go to paste layer style. And you can see then the stroke has copied over to the left circle. And if you double click over here, you can see that this is the layer style dialog box, and that's why if you copy a layer style from one layer to the other, it'll copy these properties that are in this dialog box. Okay, moving on. We're going to now make the red circle. What I'm going to do is create a new layer first. Every element you need to make a new layer. Then I'm going to rename the layer, so I'm going to double click on the text so it allows me to rename, and this will be red circle. Now what I'll be doing is using my elliptical marquee tool again, and what I want to do is drag a selection around just the red part of the circle down here. So I'm going to start in the upper top, and I'm going to use my shift button to get it close here. And then I'm going to try and move it here, and you can see that I am a bit short, so I'm going to go up to the select, modify, and I am going to expand mine by 1 pixel. You may have to contract yours, but in my case I have to expand, and I am going to expand my selection by 1 pixel and click OK, and you can see here it is right around the white, or excuse me, the red. And now right before I actually fill this in, I am going to turn off the white fill layer so you can see something here. You can see here that we have a red to a black, and it fades to each color here. That's what they consider a gradient, and I'm going to show you actually now how to drag out a gradient. What you need to look at is over here right underneath your eraser tool is going to be the gradient tool. If you click on it, and it actually, if you don't see the gradient tool, it may be hidden underneath the paint bucket, so just make sure the gradient tool is selected. And right now we want to make sure our foreground color is set to red, so click on here, make sure it's set to red, and the background is set to black. After that, what we want to do is click in this bar up here, the color bar. We don't want to click the down arrow, we want to click actually right in the bar. And what that does, it opens up our gradient editor toolbar. What we have up here are presets, and we are actually going to be picking one of these up here. I'm going to explain later about this bar. If you hover over the first one, there'll be a little notification that comes up that says foreground to background. Basically what it's going to do, it's always going to match your foreground to background color, so you can see that it is red to black. So I'm going to click on there, and you can see it is red to black now. So let's go ahead and click OK, and you can notice that your cursor turns into a crosshair, and what we need to do is inside the selection on our red circle layer, we're going to drag from about here down to the edge. And you can see that it made a red to black, but I didn't quite do this right here. And you actually don't have to do the undo, but if you want to, it is Control Z. But we want to actually pick this option up here, which is a radial gradient. That's what's going to get the circular look of the red. So I'm going to click on there, and then I'm going to do that same option. And you can see here that it is a bit more similar to the actual document. And you can see here I'm toggling between the one I created and the original one. If it's not exactly what the original one is, that doesn't matter. We're just going over how to actually create these components and the tools here. So what we want to do now is make the green outline. So we're going to make a new layer and name it green circle. And what we can do is actually fill this green circle layer with the green. So what I'm going to do is instead of actually applying a stroke to this layer, I'm going to show you one more, or a different way to actually put a stroke around something in Photoshop. So what I'm going to do is expand our selection. Notice I didn't get rid of the selection yet. But say I did get rid of the selection and you also did too, and I will go ahead and do that right now. All you have to do is holding Control on your keyboard and then click in this little area right here beside the red circle. What it will do is cast a selection around all the filled pixels on this layer, as you can see here, and which would have been exactly what our last selection was. So what I want to do is expand this selection. So go to Select, Modify, and Expand. And I'm going to expand it by about 3 pixels. Okay. 3, that was a little much, but that's okay. I'm going to keep it the way it is. So make sure you're on your green circle layer. And I'm going to go over and click on the Paint Bucket tool. And then I'm going to click on my foreground color. And I'm going to select a green color. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is just click inside our selection, and you can see it fills with green. After we're done with this, we can press Control D to deselect. And what I'm going to do is click in my green circle layer and drag it underneath red circle. And you can see now it is applying that stroke around the red circle, or the red gradient, red to black gradient layer. Okay. Next item of business is the rectangle. Actually, no, we're not going to do the rectangle yet. We are going to do the triangles here. So let's go ahead and zoom in on one. So what I'm going to do is, let's click back on the red circle and let's make a new layer and make this left triangle. And what I want you to select is underneath the lasso tool. So click and hold, and then click on the polygonal lasso tool. What we are going to do is click on the corners of the yellow. So I'm going to click here, and you can see it's going to start dragging a line. I'm going to click here. I am going to click out here, and I am going to click up here. Now that that is selected, we can go up to Edit, Fill, and I am going to use Contents, a color, and I am going to make sure I select a yellow, and click OK, and then click OK, and it will fill my selection with this color. So now what we want to do, we're not going to worry about this white line for right now. That's not too important. Press a Control D to deselect. Now what I'm going to do is click on my left triangle layer and drag it down to the new layer option. What that will do is duplicate our layer. So I am going to double click the layer name, and I am going to name this right triangle. Alright, now what I want to do is move now this triangle that was duplicated, that's exactly right on top of the left triangle now, over to the right. So I'm going to click on my move tool and click it and drag it on over. The next thing we really need to do is now rotate this around into position. So what I'm going to do, we have to invoke the transform command. So as long as the right triangle layer is selected, I can go up to edit and go down to transform, and I'm going to click on rotate. So now you can see this box appears around our right triangle. I'm going to hover over this left hand corner, and I am going to click and drag around, and you can see this is moving our triangle where we want it. Then I can just click in the middle and then move it to go over, and then if you need to move it a little bit more. Okay, but after you are done moving it, you have to press enter. And what that will do is accept the transformation. Okay, that is our right and our left triangle. Next item of business is the outer rectangle. I'm going to make a layer that says rectangle, and we can make this right on top, but afterwards we are going to have to turn this into or drag the layer below left circle, so right above the white fill. Okay, now what we can do for this one is use the rectangular marquee tool. And then what I'm going to do is go in the upper left hand corner of the rectangle and click and drag out our rectangle. Now what we need to do is put a black to white gradient down below here, and I'm going to show you a different way to actually put that gradient on there. So if you click over at your paint bucket and go down to go up to the gradient tool here, I'm just going to click on this bar up here. I'm not going to worry about my foreground to transparent color. And what we're going to do is make a custom one. So I'm just going to click down on this color stop, and I am going to double click here and then pick my color. So I want black on this side. Then over here I'm going to double click this color stop. I want white on this side. Okay, so now you can see it makes our color. I'm going to now click OK, and now what I'm going to do, I'm going to start at the very top, and I'm going to click and drag, and if you hold in shift, it will drag it perfectly straight down the line. So what I'm going to do is now let go, and you can see now I have my black to white gradient. And remember, if you are having trouble following along with the video, if you need more time, don't hesitate to hit the pause button and do a task, and then once you have it completed, hit the play button again on this video, and that should help you stay on track. So now that I have my rectangle created, I'm going to press Control D. Now, if I hide this here, you can see that in the original, you can see what they call is noise. That's what they call noise here. And you can tell that it's just basically shades of black and white. And it's more of a grayscale type of color. But they actually do call it monochrome. Mono meaning one color, chrome meaning a shade of gray. So I'm going to click on rectangle here, and that we're going to find in our filter category. So I'm going to go down to noise, and then we're going to click add noise. And you can see right away that this is starting to put noise into our graphic here. We want to make sure monochromatic is selected. If it's not, if you uncheck it here, you can see there's some color in there. Because what it does, it takes all the color spectrums and puts them into the noise here. So what I'm going to do is just make sure monochromatic is selected, and this around 25.98 is pretty good. So let's go ahead and click OK. Now that adds the noise into there. And now if you look before, it looked like it was a bit beveled. It looked a little 3D. So I'm going to double click in this area again to bring up the layer styles. And what I am actually going to select is bevel and emboss. And as soon as you check that, you'll automatically see that this is starting to look a bit beveled here. And what I am looking at, what I have set up here, if you click on the bevel and emboss, the settings that I have here are pretty much the settings you want to set it at. It's an inner bevel, it's smooth. The depth here, if you mess with it back and forth, you can see that it will make it deeper or shallower. Right now we're at about right around 100 is fine. Doesn't have to be a 100% exact. And then 5 pixels, 0 pixel, and don't worry about the shading down below. So go ahead and click OK. And now what I'm going to do is drag this rectangle layer all the way down below the left circle and above the white fill layer. So you can see it then puts the rectangle underneath all the other elements, all the other layers of our graphic here. Okay, now we can go up and work with the exercise 1 text here. You can see that it has text, and then it has it's what we call box blur in the background, and I will be working with both of these. So what I am going to do is click on the text layer here, and you can see whenever you click it here, it's going to make or turn on the actual text layer or the text options. So right now it's set for Arial rounded. Let's actually just pick the regular Arial. I'm going to click here and then type out EX1, exercise 1, and let's highlight that, and I'm going to click this little option here, and this is our warp text dialog box. So I am going to warp this text into an arc. After I'm done with that, I'm going to move it right in the position over here. If it's not 100% exact, don't worry about it. And then the bend at 50% is pretty good. So go ahead and click OK. Now what I'm going to do is add a stroke around this. So I'm going to click on stroke. And actually the default stroke settings with 3 pixel and black in color is good. So go ahead and click OK. After this, drag the exercise 1 down to the new layer and it will duplicate it. And what we're going to do is rename this, and this is going to be blur. First thing I want to do is take off the stroke of this layer, and actually let's go ahead and hide our exercise 1 text layer. And what we're going to do is then take off the stroke and then right click here and go to rasterize type. And you can see it's going to change this little icon here, because what it does is changes it from editable text and changes it into an actual graphic layer. What that's going to do is allow us to blur out this layer. So what I'm going to do is go up to filter, blur, and I am going to do box blur. And you can already see that it is starting to blur it. Actually, don't worry about canceling this. I'm going to actually turn off the white because it's making it hard to see, and I'm going to click on my background and move it. I'm actually just going to double click it, make it an editable layer, and then I'm going to move it down. Just don't worry about doing that. I'm just doing that so you can see what I'm actually doing to this layer. Remember that we can't see our exercise 1 layer, but we can see only our blur layer. That's this text right here. So go to filter, blur, box blur, and you can see right now it's already starting to give the blur effect. So what I'm going to do is bring the radius down a bit, and that's going to be pretty good about right there. So, and if you turn the preview off and on, you can see what it's doing. So I'm going to click OK here. Then I will turn on the exercise text layer, but I want to drag the exercise text layer above blur, and it will come out more clearly here. Now I'm going to click back here. You don't have to do this. I'm just going to move this back layer back into place like so. And then I'm going to turn my white fill layer back on. Next item of business is the text at the bottom where it says fundamental concepts. You may say this might be easy because it looks like regular text, but there's quite a few changes on this that I'm going to show you how to do. So let's go ahead and get started with it. So I'm going to click on the text tool. I'm going to click out in front here, and we're going to change this to Arial rounded, and I'm going to keep the tag or the size about 36 here. So let's type out fundamental concepts. And I'm going to make sure that this is center aligned. And what we need to do is actually move this over. You can see it's not quite lining up. So what I'm going to do is, if you move that around, go and you need to get back into the text, which we do need to do, is click on the text tool and just click in the middle of the text, and it will reactivate the the editable area of the text here. If you actually click on this little button here, what that's going to do is bring up our character panel. What your character panel does is manipulates your actual characters of your text. The two biggest ones that we're going to mess around with here is this one, the leading, and this one, the tracking. So if you actually just hover over this little icon and then click and drag to the left or right, you can see what this option does. The leading is basically the distance between two lines of text. So the distance between this letter and this letter, that little distance in the middle there, that's what is changing with this number. The smaller, the closer; the larger, the farther. So I'm going to make it so the T is somewhat running into the end there. And that's what I'm going to, if you go right along here, the edge is going to allow you to actually move it up. Now that's not too bad, but obviously our tracking is off. So what I'm going to do is bring the tracking back a bit, and you can see what that is doing. It is shortening the distance between each letter on each line. So I'm going to bring that down, and that's pretty good right there. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to click back on the move tool. And there's one more thing. I didn't change the color. So let's actually click back onto here, and I'm going to highlight all this. And to change the text color, you have to click up in here, and I'm going to grab this pinkish purple color that they originally had and click OK. Alright, that's good for that text. And sometimes it is tough. You may need to practice with the character panel, just experimenting with all the options in there. I'm not going to go into detail all of this here because I could talk for hours on that. But just for this exercise, we'll just be using the leading and the tracking. So I'm done with that, so I'm going to actually close out all those tabs, well, that panel, and basically we have everything done except for the background image. On your Z drive, you will find a picture. Bear with my computer. Let me locate it here. this, like I said, will be on your Z drive. Here we go. And mine is in this folder. Okay, you're going to find an abstract picture. So go ahead and click open. And then you can see that it opens a new tab right here. What I want to do is click on this tab and drag it out to about here. And what that's going to do, it's going to allow you to see both documents here. But what I'm going to do is make sure my move tool is selected. Then I'm going to click and drag over to this area. And then once you see this background appear in your actual document that you're working from, you can go ahead and close this one. So what I'm going to do is zoom out. At this point, you want to move this layer down underneath your rectangle layer, because it is our background. And let's go ahead and zoom out a good bit. What we want to do is transform the background shape to be smaller so it fits in the background. So press Control plus T for transform. And I'm going to move this and snap it to the corner here. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit more so I can see the full square. If you click on this corner here, and what you want to do is hold in Shift, because Shift proportionally drags. And what we want to do is resize it until the bottom of the background hits the bottom of our actual document. And now I'm going to zoom back in here. And then whenever I have it right, I'm just going to press Enter. And then what I can do is use my arrow keys to move this into the position that I want. I'm using my left arrow key. And okay, so you want to make sure it covers up the whole background there. And this is a complete exercise 1. If you got to this point, congratulations. This is your first full Photoshop exercise completed. The last thing to do is to actually save your document. So if you just go to File, Save, that's going to save your actual document as a Photoshop document. What you always want to do whenever you complete a Photoshop document is then save it as an actual transferable document like a JPEG. So once you have it saved as your PSD, I say that because if you go to Save As, that's what it's called, .psd. You want to change the format to a JPEG format, and you can pick this first one right here. And you can see now I'm going to just keep it as tutorial working. Yours is most likely going to be your name and lesson 1. So go ahead and click Save here, and you will see this dialog box pop up. What this does is it makes the quality of your JPEG file. So if you drag this down here, you're going to actually see what your JPEG file will look like. And if you bring it down very far, what it does changes the file size. Whenever you bring the file size down, it then starts to pixelate and distort your photo, as you can see here. So for this one, I'm going to keep it up. About 10 is pretty clear. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and then that will save a separate JPEG for you in your file. And that's what I'm going to be looking for. I want to see that PSD file, and then I want to see a JPEG file with it. It's not always going to be a JPEG file. Sometimes it'll be a .png file. Sometimes it will be a GIF GIF file, but those are more for animations. So as long as you got to this part, congratulations, and I'll see you in the next exercise.